Traders, welcome. My name is Adam Harris, Chief Market Analyst, and thank you for joining me. It is Sunday the 14th, but I've got the date wrong, Sunday the 12th, I beg your pardon, and this is preparing this for the week commencing Monday the 13th of May 2024. So let's have a quick look at the economic calendar. I hope you're enjoying, by the way, just a quick side note to everyone in the UK, I hope you're enjoying the absolute glorious weather we're having after such a shockingly long and wet winter. Right, back to the economic calendar. So first of all, I'm not worried about anything in the US. There's nothing going on in the US. The economy is fine. Everything's cool. Between now and the election on, I think it's the 15th of November, we really just want to be watching jobs. Are the jobs there, and anything else that's a surprise. But for the most part, the economy is stable, and therefore it should just continue to tick over. I mean, I'd be amazed if it continued to keep just low unemployment under 4%. If it peaks above 4.4%, they'll probably make a big deal about that. But it's the best economy the US has had in probably 70 years. So, and right now it seems absolutely fine. It's very, very bullish. And as soon as it gets bullish, people immediately say, well, we're in a bubble. That's because of how unstable just things have been since 2007, 2009. We're already in a bull market right now. We still have inflation, which slowly but surely the mainstream media is starting to accept is directly as a consequence of greedflation, which is a corporate thing. So if we could nail that, we would find probably the last inflation would go down. And so of course there's consequences to everything, but just that's really it. So I'm not worried about the US. I really want to focus on, let's see how CPI is for Europe. This will be coming out on Friday. Yes, if you're a trader, you'll be seeing increased volatility in the markets around these news announcements. But for the most part, there isn't anything here that I don't think. Possibly look at a Japanese yen at Bank of Japan, just see with regards to Japan, what's their GDP looking like. They have some concerns. And with regards to the UK, those are minor things. But for the most part, I really expect that the US is going to continue to tick along and that there isn't going to be any major red flags. I would say we could have minor things. We want to see what goes on, minor blips, but nothing major. So that being said, let's go across to the charts and see what's going on. Okay, so we'll kick off here with the volatility index right down at the lows. The monthly is really giving you the best idea here. That's it, operating right near the lows. Relatively happy, so the market is stable. I am oversimplifying it, but there's no need to overcomplicate it. Okay, so now we have a look at the dollar index. So I would highlight this. We are in an uptrend on the weekly. We've pulled back. We've produced a green buyer's candle with a bit of a wick on top, so it's not super strong, but it is. We have got the 50, the 20, and the 10 in a bullish formation. We have got the MACD trending higher, so we've got convergence there. I would say very straightforward. Very simply put, I would say that we have a nice uptrend, and my expectation this week is that the dollar index will strengthen based off this, but it becomes much more likely if we break the high. So in other words, if the dollar index breaks above 105.66, we then have a confirmation of the market follow through. There's definitely some resistance around 106. But the momentum, my point is the momentum appears to be the upside. Okay, let's go and have a look and see if euro dollar is looking bearish. So euro dollar is in an uptrend, looks nice and bullish here. On the weekly, it's in a downtrend, but also back into the moving averages. This is interesting. So euro dollar looks bullish, dollar index looks bullish as well. Can you have that? Yes, you can. Of course you can. You can have a strong pound, a strong dollar, strong yen. They can all be happening at the same time, but obviously relative to each other, we would expect something. It does appear to me as though the euro is right now is not really giving any bearish signals. It's an indecision candle. It's bearish, but just slightly. Okay, so there we go. Interesting. And got to go back to this very bullish engulfing candle on Friday or Thursday last week. So actually, basically what that means is plenty of buyers for euro dollar at this time. Let's look at sterling. Sterling, on the other hand, looks a little bit weaker. We've broken through the lows here. It is a bullish engulfing candle as well. So potentially that would be for the same news. That would have been dollar news that happened last week. We've got an indecision candle here as well, and it's a swing high. So when you kind of look at this, cable is weaker, relatively speaking, to euro dollar. Let's have a look at Aussie dollar, US dollar. This is up at resistance. I really think we should just mark this resistance level, which we have over here. But also, again, looking a little bit more bullish. I just find that interesting. The dollar is looking strong, but so are a few other things. Kiwi dollar here also not looking that bad. A little bit like a potential higher low, if nothing else, maybe a double bottom. And it's a nice little bit of an uptrend here. So far already I'm alert because we have signals for a strong dollar, but also signals for strong euro, pound, Aussie, and Kiwi. and not a weaker dollar, but a strong euro and so on. So that provides that creates the conditions for a bit of a face-off, so to speak. So we could find this week is relatively turbulent. So just be aware of that. Dollar yen. So dollar yen again looking bullish here, and this supports the idea of a stronger dollar. Look at that, really strong pullback on the weekly, bullish inside candle. Looks good. So trend is still to the upside there. Let's have a look at dollar Swissy. Dollar Swissy a little bit different. Here we've got a lower high here. Kind of looks like it wants to form a bit of head and shoulders, but that's the strong resistance on the monthly. Again, I'm going to just copy this, just copy it and move it up to this area here. Where is it? It seems as though I accidentally, okay, let's copy it. And there we go. That's what I'm looking for. There we go. So 0.92, some strong resistance there, and overall it's battling with that. I still feel though that the trend is more to the upside than the downside, and I stand by my assessment of the Swissy pairs. So getting again very different here, getting different signals from dollar yen, dollar Swissy, and dollar CAD. Dollar CAD you're looking relatively weak, undecided. I know it is trending higher, but it's really battling. It's battling. There's a big difference here. It's got a series of low highs going in. It's got buys here. It's forming a wedge, so to speak. So we've got completely different signals coming in from the body language of dollar yen, dollar Swissy, and dollar CAD. Whereas Euro, GBP, Aussie, and Kiwi, we're hinting at potentially just looking a bit stronger. So where we might be getting a lot of that dollar strength from on the dollar index is potentially dollar yen. That's really what it's giving it to us. But that being said, because we have that contradiction, I'm not going to relax. I am prepared that this week could provide, there could be a battle between the dollar and everything else. But just kind of the way that it's lying right now, it hints at dollar index strengthening, but it hints at Euro, GBP, Aussie, and Kiwi also holding their ground. So possibly we just end up with nothing really happening, just quite a bit of friction. Whereas with dollar yen, it looks like it wants to continue higher. Dollar Swissy is undecided. Dollar CAD is undecided. Very interesting, just completely mixed sort of signals. Okay, gold. So gold has had a shallow retracement, bare minimum down to 2,300, produced a swing low, closed near the highs in this area. Let's get rid of that. And therefore it looks intend to continue higher. So gold for this week, what I would watch is to see how it reacts at 2,400. If we get a second strong rejection of that, we will get a kickback down to 2.2 or 2.1. So that's what we have to watch out for. Short term, bullish to the upside. Silver, as I said, silver had a much better correction, much healthier, and absolutely has got some good room to run up to 28.72. 29, we're going to have to just see 28.72 is really the limit, upper limit for it there. But otherwise, it looks much healthier than gold. See how that goes. Let's move on to natural gas starting to push up a little bit higher now. Remember, I've been talking about natural gas for such a long time, talking about it bottoming out. I'm not really going to do that, even though it does now continue to appear to be bottoming out and producing now bullish on MACD, breaking above the highs here. Looks as though it is starting to turn around. So we'll see what's going to happen with there. We'll just keep an eye on it. Like crude. Again, not looking super strong. We spoke about this before. This is a good area for it to find a base, this area. It's produced an indecision candle. So we could see a turnaround this coming week if it's going to maintain that bullishness. But what I like about this scenario, if you are like me in the sense that you don't really like crude oil being played around with and manipulated very much, and you also don't like the fact that it has an impact on our cost of living, and also you don't like the fact that it is responsible for a large amount of damage to the planet, all kinds of things that just make common sense, then this would kind of make you happy, because we're not really seeing a lot of activity here. It moves down quite a bit, it moves up a bit, but what I'm not seeing is a crystal clear intention with this commodity right now, and it hasn't been that way for a while. So even when it turned around and went up, it went up for a bit, and now it's kind of given that back. So in other words, also, because this is a primary component in global conflict, if it's not really in demand and it's not moving higher, that also removes it as a potential incentive for global conflict. So again, there are benefits to crude oil not really coming under demand. That would be good for everyone. I'm going to do a quick run through some of the others. I want to have a quick look at copper, so just give me a second here. Copper looking nice and bullish, continues to tick to the upside here. It certainly looks exhausted on the weekly, needs a bit of a correction there. Coffee, these are just other commodities I feel like I don't give them enough attention, and they do a lot of moves when I'm not even talking about them. Commodities had a beautiful correction. Sorry, coffee has had a beautiful correction. Back a very nice little bullish candle. This implies it's a beautiful correction. It's a very nice fib one as well. Implies that yes, it's likely to attempt to go higher again. The monthly looks as though it's just getting ready to come back down, but the weekly looks like it wants to take another run to the upside. And that was it. Right, then we went on to crude oil. We spoke about that. We had a look at West Texas crude. Well, we're having a look at West Texas crude. Yeah, again, I'm just not seeing a lot of bullishness with it. Looks as though it has produced that indecision candle, and this could be a turning point for it above that 50-period moving average. It's broken above it, testing support. I would say that there's a slightly greater than 50% chance that it's going to attempt to move higher. I'd watch the high and low of this week's candle. That would really give some good clues for the most part. Very quickly, wheat starting to turn around. That is a beautiful turnaround. That's a long-term turnaround. Why do I say that? We have this very nice, beautiful lower low here. You can see actually, if you really want to kind of be picky about it, it also is a little bit of a double bottom. So we've got a base here and another base here. You've got all these wicks over here. You've got a full-bodied candle that's broken the high here. The only thing we don't have here is bullish MACD. So this implies at least an attempt for wheat to head up to the old highs here, 737 up to 800. That looks very good. That's a very nice, beautiful double bottom turn. I'm curious, if we go to the weekly now, do we see bullish divergence? Do we see that? Yeah, let's have a look. So bullish divergence, we absolutely do. There we go. In fact, I must have commented on it at some point in the past. There is our bullish divergence. So that is a trend change happening for wheat, guys. Wheat looks like it's bottoming out. That's pretty cool. Sugar. Just quickly trying to do this. Okay, sugar's kind of near the lows, looks relatively bearish. I mean, it could turn around where it is now. It could form a double bottom. It could, but overall, this type of behavior is very bearish, closing near those lows. I would come back to that one. Let's have a look. Then we've got cotton, and cotton also coming down, testing this 50-period moving average, skirting this zero value on the MACD, also looking very bearish. Interesting. So sugar and cotton looking quite weak here. All right, my favorites, let's go on to the global indices. Let's have a look. Very nice and healthy. Beautiful follow through last week. Love it. Nice and bullish. Now a little bit overextended on the daily, coming up into resistance levels. So any kind of a pullback this week for me is a buying opportunity. The month looking really, really good so far. Looks as though it's setting up for a move. So if you look at the monthly from this perspective, you had a pullback like this, bullish candle, you headed higher. Here you had a pullback, bullish candle headed higher. Here we've got a pullback and a bullish candle heading higher. It's not dissimilar to these types of pullbacks, and therefore the potential for this to go higher is certainly 3 or 4 candles to the upside there. So that's interesting. So it's very fair to suggest that we're going to see it hit 40,000 and potentially see it go up to 45. Is 45 too crazy? Remember, we live. There's twice as many people on the planet now as there was in the 1970s, which is not that long ago. We have 10 times the number of companies. Actually, I don't know that's that, but I bet you we do have just so many more companies. We have more entrepreneurs. We have more types of business opportunities, influencers. We have all these different things. Back in the 70s, a lot more people were employed than they are today. Now, a lot more people are self-employed. And they're all startups, and it's easier to create startups, easier to invest in them. So there's a lot more stocks available, a lot more companies are listed. And so collectively, there's more money going into the market. So it kind of makes sense that with a larger population, more companies, even though the 500 is obviously capped at 500, but more people also educated, more people capable of accessing and putting money into the stock market, that you would see more money going into it and therefore more growth and potentially more optimism. I think that's something I'd like you to take away from this, more optimism, guys. Sometimes we get so stuck picking at our wounds, we forget that actually it isn't necessarily all terrible out there. There's a lot of terrible things going on, but many of us are not necessarily impacted by that. And sometimes our lives are better than we think they are. We just kind of get stuck in all the terrible news and the media. So 45,000 looking interesting. Not saying it's a definite, but I'm saying we went here from 33,000, 34,000 up to 40,000. Therefore, 40,000 to 45,000 is really not a ridiculous stretch. Let's just mark that for fun. Let's just mark that for fun and see if we do end up getting into that area. We'll know as price goes there, it'll start to struggle if it isn't going to make it. S&P also looks really good. I forget why I put a question mark there. I forget it, but we don't need that anymore. I had a reason. I think it might have, I can't remember what it was. But looks really good. At a pullback to 5,000, looks great. Heading up, 5,400 is pretty easy. 5,500 in the future. So all looking pretty good. 5,500 looks pretty easy. NASDAQ also looking good. We can move this across now I'm not sure why I put this here, but we can move it. Oh, that's why, because it was 19,000. You know what? I want to see what happens when we get to this level. So there's going to be a little bit of a duplication. 18,600 is a bit of a level. So will we get through that? We're going to have to find out. But all of this looking phenomenal. For me, it's going to be a buying week. I think if we get any kind of pullbacks, could be some really nice, decent things. Mini Russell 2000 is out of its range, guys. It's back out of its range. Again, that's a really good sign. FTSE 100 just on fire, good. And you know, if anyone's nervous about the FTSE taking off like this, I just want to remind you that for 30 years it was sort of unable to break like 6.7, 6.8, 6.9. It just, you couldn't get it past that. It was really just struggling to get past it. And it's only since kind of COVID or in the last 5 years or something that it's managed to kind of break above that a bit. Since COVID, it seems to have really, really picked up. And I think it's a really good thing. So it's nice to see it happening. It looks good. I mean, it's starting to go a little bit parabolic, and yes, any pullbacks here would be appreciated. It is overextended, but relatively speaking, it's one of the healthiest overextensions I've ever seen, ever. Okay, and possibly for some of you, that's a red flag because something that hasn't happened before has happened, but I'm comparing it to global indices and taking the 15 years of experience I have with the FTSE into account. I'm going, it kind of felt like we were always dragging along, not really going anywhere. Now it feels like we're kind of playing ball. And so I see that as a good thing. Stocks are optimistic. You cannot be a pessimist. Don't confuse pessimism with realism. That's not the same thing. In fact, statistically, optimists tend to be more successful than pessimists, obviously, because they try and take risks. But don't confuse pessimism with realism. The stock market itself is a product of optimism, of faith, of belief. Holy cow, this can happen. It's not the result of pessimism. And there's a difference between being cautious and being pessimistic. And being realistic is not, it doesn't even feature into it. We can deal with studies of probabilities. And realism doesn't really feature into it. It's whether you're optimistic, whether you have faith, whether you don't let your fears override opportunities in front of you. And obviously, at the same time, you don't run off a cliff without kind of knowing what you're doing. So it's always a balance between those things. Okay, FTSE looks good. I love it. DAX also looking good. Man, look at this. But look at the behavior. The behavior is calm and consistent. Look at the price action. It's not... How we'll know when things are starting to get tricky, when we start getting too hot, and we are like the bubble is close to bursting, is the candles start to freak out. You start getting a lot of wicks on top, you get wicks on the bottom, you get a bit more indecision in the body of the candles. It's never a quick thing. It takes several weeks, several months, potentially even, for that type of stuff to unfold. If you don't believe me, go through 2007, 2009, go through 1929 stock crash, look at the price action behavior there, look at the 1980s as well, dot-com bubble. You can see it all forming. It took a while before the bubble burst, so to speak. Looks good. I just like that. The point is it's bullish. Yes, it's overextended on the daily. Yes, we need to have pullbacks, but the stuff looks good so far. ASX, also very nice. Beautiful little pullback to this level of support. I highlighted that one because that could be it, but we had a bigger correction, and that's absolutely fine. This looks good. So in fact, I would take this away, and I would highlight this one. That looks great. Beautiful. A break and a retest. Lots of bullish candles here. Look how the bodies are closing near the highs. Very few wicks on top. Look at all the wicks underneath. That just means the buyers are just pushing it up, pushing it up. It's a really good sign. So I expect it will close bullishly here. Yes, we will have some resistance here. We should be able to break through it. Nikkei. I'm taking too long. I'm taking too long here. The Nikkei could still do with a bit of a correction. I would like to see it come down and tap these previous lows and then close as a bullish candle. That will bring the moving averages up and then we'll be fine. It could go up from here, but I think it needs a bit of a correction further down. And that might just take, it doesn't have to move far. It could even do it this week. Another drop and then go up, turn around, we'll see. All right, let's go on to Apple. So Apple, we spoke about that. Well, I spoke about that double bottom. I was looking for that and we got it. Very nice. So I'll get rid of all that. We don't need that. We're all good. So far it looks fine. It just needs to recover a bit. So after a big move like this, it's probably going to consolidate for a bit and then take off. Excuse me. I just would look for April here to finish like this. That would be a good sign. So for me, I'm relatively happy and it's within a range. So what does that mean? It means that the highest probability is that it's going to go up. It's almost as close as you can get to a sure thing. that it's going to head up to the top of the range. But beyond the range, we're going to have to see about that. You always have to, a market can only do three things. It can only go up, down, or sideways. Right now, Apple is going sideways. And they're not the same thing. Going sideways is not the same thing as going up. Up's not the same thing as going down. It can only do one of those things. Right now, it's going sideways, but it's going up within a sideways boxed area. And so the probabilities are that it will complete that cycle, that behavior. It will complete it, which means it'll go to the top of the range. Okay, Amazon, looking good, battling with that resistance level, still a little bit overextended on a monthly basis over here. The weekly looks great, so it might want to consolidate for a bit. I think I spoke about that last week. We'll see. AT&T, fine. AT&T is just going to keep ticking up. Looks good. ARK. Okay, ARK is going to continue down within the range for now. I'm not really seeing much to be optimistic with ARK. My faith in their decision making and management is on pause at the moment. So not expecting much from ARK at the moment. Let's move on. ASML looks good. So don't forget ASML, very much a key player in, I can't believe I'm blanking on the word right now, but it's just going to be one of those days. Let's just say microchips. I don't know why I'm blanking. I apologize. It's not microchips, and I'll get the word in a moment. Hold on. Semiconductors, obviously, is what I meant. Semiconductors. So they've had a good correction. Although there's a gap between them, so when I spoke about the Nikkei and I said there was a gap, this one has closed that gap. It's acceptable. Nice little wicks underneath that. This is good to continue onwards. I'm happy with that. Yes, there'll be some resistance at this area. So we might get a patch where we get a bit of consolidation in the coming months, but they'll look good. I'm happy with that. Glencore looks really good. Closing near the highs. That's not a, this might be referred to as a hanging man candle because it's happening at the top of a move, near the top of a range. But in this particular instance, it looks particularly bullish. Also, when you look at the weekly and you expand this out, you can see that it's just pulled back and already looking bullish. You've got the 50, 20, and 10 in a bullish formation. Like the momentum is just very much to the upside. So that all looks good. Tesco, beautiful, just lovely. Like it. It's relatively straightforward setup there. Also looking nice and bullish. Also, again, any kind of pullbacks this week would be great, would be much appreciated. Amex continuing to, the weekly is really the clue here. It's ridiculously bullish on the monthly over here, but that weekly looking good. You know, one of the things I would be paying attention to, because I don't want people who watch this to think I'm not paying attention to the things we need to pay attention to. You know, I do. I read about things like defaults, people defaulting on their mortgages, companies defaulting on their rent. I do kind of look at all those because those are red flags, and those are the kind of things that we had happen. So anything that shouldn't be happening that's out of the normal, plus all the people I follow, I obviously follow a lot of the people you know, from the Big Short as well as Ray Dalio, a lot of people who really do track all these things for me, who do all the work for us, do follow them. But there's just nothing that they're really worried about right now. And so, again, those are the people I trust. Berkshire Hathaway looks good. Look at this, guys. This is beautiful. This is a beautiful signal so far. This is a weekly, that's a buy candle. The monthly, again, I would really rather that it close this. I would love for it to just come down 380, 385, and then carry on. But the weekly is presenting a range within that. And the only question is this area, which, if you recall, when we were going up, I said, look, I think 420, it's overextended. I think we're going to have a problem, and we did. I didn't know that for sure. I just said it's enough of an extension and enough of a round number that we would maybe see a reaction, and we did. Like it was, you know, we did. But this looks good. So again, we're in a range now. You can see the highs here and you can see the lows here. So I don't think we're free and clear of it yet. We might have to go sideways for a bit and then have the moving averages connect and then go off. We'll see how that goes. The moving averages are the true value. So when the true value can catch up with price, or price can come down to the true value. So most people think you can only have one thing happen. True value the bubble has to burst, price has to crash to come back down to true value. No, true value can catch up to it. But there are times when the gap between where price is and where the true value is too great. One side's going to have to cave, and it's almost always price. Coca-Cola looks good, guys. It's breaking out its range to the top. I think we'll be able to, maybe next week, get rid of this box. Do it. Again, think about it. Everything I'm talking about so far, we're seeing predominantly stability, financial, economic stability in the biggest economy in the world. We're not seeing economic instability in other countries. I mean, Japan are tweaking their system. They've got a few things they're not happy about, but they're not in dire straits. And the UK is definitely, for once, not in dire straits. So there's not as many things falling apart as we see. And what I am seeing as well, I see China's index breaking out. I see the Hang Seng breaking out from going from bearish to bullish. We're seeing, again, the early stages of potentially what could turn out to be a golden era. What we just need to do now is resolve corruption, which I do want to do a discussion on, this being the golden era of fraud. Fraud is at all-time highs, and this is something that does go part and parcel with bubbles, so we have to be aware of that. So I'll write some articles on that for investing.com. And it's definitely, we can see it. If it smells like fraud and looks like fraud, it probably is, and it's, you know, it's everywhere. We've got our Enrons on the way, so to speak. But also, yeah, we've got like global conflict. We need to resolve that stuff. Okay. Did anyone get to see the Aurora Borealis? I missed it, and it was massive in where I live, and I didn't see it. Had no idea it was happening. I was on social media. Nothing came through my feed. Completely missed it. So I feel gutted. Okay, Exxon also looking good. Again, Exxon here, by the way, has broken out its range. It's pulled back, bullish inside candle. Looks like it's just going to keep ticking to the upside. I'm not too worried about that for now. General Motors looks fine. Just looks like this move was a bit much. It's just going to bob around for a bit. Looks like it's trying to build to a bit of a breakout. Let's see if that happens. Will that do a bit of a breakout over here? We'll see. We'll see. Come and have a look at it next week. JP Morgan doing fine. Again, this looks great. Weekly looks really good. The monthly looks overextended. Looks just overextended. So not sure how that's going to resolve itself just yet. It's battling with this level. A really good way for it to do would be to have a failed breakout here, have a correction down, and then just recover. But overall, it is strong and healthy. Like if I do own on the one account, and my one client owns JP Morgan, he's fine. I wouldn't like, there's just none of this for me is a red flag, so that's good. QQQ looks good, looks fine. Again, I would have loved to pull back here, but it's not, as the gap here isn't so bad. If the market is super bullish, then those types of gaps are going to occur. The only difference is how big are they? Are they like acceptable or very odd? Adidas having had a big move, so Adidas just needs a bit of a pullback and we'll keep going. Looks okay, it's above the 50 period, looks nice. Meta looks fine. Meta's recovering, but again, Meta looks very similar to what we've seen with JP Morgan, for example, where there's immediately resistance up here, but it has had a bit of a correction. So it's just going to go for that level again, and we'll see. And it looks as though it pretty much pulled back into that area. Let's explore that. So we'll look at it on a monthly basis. Let's look at Fibonacci, and let's take this low to this high. So you've got this low down here, and then it moves up, and then the lowest point, other than this one, the lowest point below here is this one and this one, which says we had a 382, almost a 50% pullback. And if it's a 382, I'll allow it. I will allow it. Okay, Morgan Stanley. Just pushing on up, just looking good. Breaking through all these weekly ones. The red lines are meant to be weekly levels. I'm sorry, because they make it look like danger zones. They're not. They're just weekly levels. We've got NVIDIA. Okay, so talk to me about NVIDIA. Let's see. Again, NVIDIA is another one of those great examples, just hovering near the top. Really needs that correction to the downside. Had a minimal one here. That looks nice and bullish. Doesn't really seem to want to give up much of that. So possibly we can... I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to adjust this. I'm not saying it's going to stick around. I just want to see if it does. Just curious to see what happens here. I really think NVIDIA would benefit from a deeper correction down to 600. But if it's not going to do it, it's going to consolidate for a while before breaking out. So we'll just play it as it lies. Netflix, looking good. I mean, this didn't even touch the moving averages over here, but it's very crisp on its behavior. Pull back into the old highs. That looks good. Yeah, it looks all right. Hey? Netflix looks good. PayPal. Okay, so for the first time ever in my Threads feed, I saw a couple of people commenting on PayPal's service and fees and a few other things. Because I said to you, I've always used PayPal. I've always thought it was pretty cool, but I live in the UK, and actually I don't use it necessarily as much as other people do. And so it's very possible that it's not really that great right now, and so therefore it's interesting to me. So I see some similarities in PayPal as well as ARK. One of the ones that was also struggling a bit, I think, was it Netflix or something, but then that broke out. So it's struggling. And so let's just see where that is for now, because that does appear to be struggling. Spotify, okay, Spotify just overextended on the monthly, in my opinion. It's just been running and running and running up here, needs a bit of a breather. So it needs a bit of a consolidation, but otherwise it's relatively healthy. But I do think it needs to either go sideways for a bit or needs a bit of a correction. Spider also looking good. We had a pullback into the green area, so we got the pullback we wanted. Looks as though it's going to keep trying to go up. And from a monthly perspective, it looks fine. Doesn't look super strong, but it doesn't look terrible either. And what is this? What is this? Let's get rid of that. FedEx. Oof, running over. That looks fine. FedEx is a nice pullback. Beautiful candle over here. This looks nice. Let's just highlight that. Managing, and it's pullback in here. It looks okay. So from all of that, I expect FedEx to keep going. Let's have a look at Tesla. Tesla's going to continue hitting lower. I think this week I'll expect it to go down. None of the stuff, as objective as I try to be, I'm just not seeing any reason how this company is going to survive. So I'm not really sure. This for me is a wait and see. I just want to wait and see what's going to happen. But technically, it looks like it's going to just keep going down. I stand by my assessment that 100 is very feasible. Where it gets really interesting is if it breaks 100. That's where I think it's going to get really interesting. Because if it breaks 100, it's going to break the brains of a lot of people that are committed to Tesla. Because there's that 100 is a massive psychological level, and I think in this particular case, it is the last one. Like if it broke 100, something must have happened. There would be something transformative. 100 would just be it, because then you go down into double digits. Like you can't, it hasn't been in double digits for a while. But right now I think 100 is fair to, let's just see what happens. But that looks like where it's going. Vanguard, S&P correction continuing up. We've seen this behavior on a lot of charts. They've basically done a retracement on the weekly. It looks like the monthly wants to keep going. The question for me then is, they are a bit overextended. Will they go sideways for a bit or just keep going? Or just keep pushing it? Walt Disney, last week. So I thought Walt Disney looked good over here. I think we had the wicks and everything. I can't remember if I thought it might go a bit lower, but we could see a gap down here. However, at this time, I'm not too concerned. I guess my question then is going to be, will we get in this area, will we get now a green candle this week? Okay, so will we get in this area a green candle? Let's wait until next week and see what happens. Because if it is going to turn around and it is relatively healthy, that's what it's going to do. That's what I love about technical analysis. If it's going to turn around, this is kind of the area for it to do it, and that's roughly what it would do. All right, let's look at bonds quickly. Bonds continuing, at least the US ones, treasuries still staying below these levels, below the 50-period moving average, below this downward sloping trend line, and still producing bearish signals over here, even though the monthly does look bullish. So for me, what would be important is a weekly candle. If we got it, would be a weekly break and above that 50-period moving average if we get it. Okay, if we're going to get that. Euro. Still looking relatively bearish over there. Doesn't look that different on the monthly and cannot break through that downward sloping trend line. So all of that still keeping it down. Treasuries at all-time lows. All right, let's look at cryptos. There was some interesting stuff. Cryptos to me were looking actually relatively bullish. Let's get rid of these so we can wrap this up. This wasn't meant to be a long video today. Yes, that bullish candle is still here. It's not a really strong finish. When they close near the highs, it's always a lot better. Not a super strong finish. It's okay. I think I've said before that a correction down here would be better. Would still be better, but we're going to have to see. Ethereum, on the other hand, looks as though it's still drifting around that area. And actually, Ethereum is in the right area to turn around. So I will just mark this. I don't think it goes that far. I'm going to mark it. I think this is like a good area for Ethereum to turn around. And let's see, it's got a level of support here. So it could potentially still do that. Then we have Solana. Solana looked good to me. I mean, it's drifting sideways. There's a nice bullish candle. And it's had a good correction. So this is a good area for it to consolidate before moving higher. One of them to me this still looks bearish. That still looks like it wants to head lower. It's a good area for it to consolidate. It is trending a little bit higher here. Not expecting much this week. Basically, not expecting much from cryptos this week. What I found interesting to me is Binance is looking bullish. It looks as though it's trying to work to a breakout. Now, I'm not saying it will, but it's forming a breakout pattern. It's overextended here, of course, and it's a mess over here. But what it's trying to do is to break out. So I'm curious if we're going to get that. There are times when it's a very strong signal it's going to do that, and there are times when it looks like it's forming that. So here I'm just going to see 50-50, but it looks like it's forming a breakout pattern. Wants to break through the 620 area or 600 area and break higher. So we'll see if that's going to be the case. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Some articles coming in this week. I do want to talk about the golden age of fraud. I'm going to reference a few other famous investors and talk about a few other things there. Also, what I want to do is go through some of the pro features and look at adding some stocks, UK stocks and other stocks to portfolio this week. I think for me, at least, there might be some buying opportunities if some of these are in their weekly stages. But again, a lot of these positions I'm thinking of, these are 2-year positions at the very least. In other words, I'm not thinking I'm going to hold them for a few weeks. I'm thinking I'm probably going to hold them for longer than that. But yeah, keep tabs on the investing.com page, and I look forward to sharing those with you. So thank you.